Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today I am sharing my 5 top tips for creating holiday cards that wow. I combed through the past 3 years of card videos that I've made and I picked out 4 of my favorite holiday cards and then I analyzed them to see what they have in common. And there are 5 things. I think you can do this with really any supplies that you have. So the goal today is to talk about ways you can use your stash to create similar effects. We're going to talk about taking a sentiment and making it really special, adding some kind of handmade touch, the things that mean your card was definitely handmade and didn't come from Target, adding texture and shine, and adding some kind of surprise. Believe it or not, it's easier than you may think. So let's take a look at some examples. This first card comes from an early card kit. This was from volume 17. We're on 80 something at this point. And there's a card sketch. So again, I'll link to that video so you can get to the free sketch printable and all of that. But for my textural element, I grabbed a piercing plate. You can see on the panel, I have that stitched detail pierced into my A2 card front. It's the stitched stripe card front from Concord and 9th. But friends, there are tons and tons of companies that make dies like this, right? So Concord and 9th has a bunch. Altenew has a handful that I have and love. Pretty Pink Posh, Honeybee Stamps, Spellbinders. So check your stash. What I particularly like about a piercing plate for this is that it's not going to add any bulk. So that makes for really easy mailing. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 additional elements on here. I have a piece of 3-inch wide by 5.5-inch red cardstock, and then I have some pattern paper from my stash. There are tons of handmade, hands-on ways to add shine to your cards, and we'll look at some of that. But when you're making cards in bulk for the holidays, you can absolutely lean on pattern paper. This is old stuff. I think it came from Stampin' Up, but it's just a sort of gold foil on white, right? There's nothing particularly unique or special, but that shine catches the light and it makes it a card that they would charge an extra couple bucks for at the store because it's got that foiling on it. When I feel stuck or I don't have a lot of my creative juices moving the way I want to, a card sketch for me is a really great way to try to get started. And this particular sketch is always one of my favorites because it's got a spot that is very definitely for some kind of focal image. That's this larger circle here. It's 3 inches. And then there's an emergency card sentiment. So if you're new to my channel, I release free printable kits with sentiments and card sketches on the first Friday of every month. And they always contain circle sentiments that are 1 3/4 of an inch. So you can swap in a birthday sentiment if you want to make birthday cards instead of Christmas cards, anything like that. And this just gives you a really great layout to start with. For me, the handmade element is usually a die cut. I love the texture of it and that thing that says this was definitely made by a person, but it could be a stamped and colored image. It could be a photo of your family. It could be a lot of things that make it unique to you. So just know you can swap in all kinds of things here. I'm using this Christmas wreath add-on. I love the add-on dies. Spellbinders has a lot of them. But this has a Christmas tree and a snowman and a sentiment. It has tons of different options to choose from all in the same set, and they can be used independently. And you'll find them in surprising places. They just recently came out with Fergus. He's like a felt stitching project. He's a little wizard. He's so cute. But the 2 add-ons for Fergus are great and they don't have to be felt stitched. So there's like a Halloween one that has a skull and a pumpkin and bats and a spider and spider webs, and they can be used independently and you don't have to buy the Fergus that they go with. There's a holiday add-on for that one as well. So look especially from Spellbinders for those sort of add-on sets. Then I want to talk about making a sentiment special. For me, this is really easy because I make my own custom sentiments. This one is going to say season's greetings from the naughty list. And so I know whoever I give this to is going to chuckle and be like, only Sarah would send me this. Yep. That's perfect. I love that emergency card sentiments give everybody just tons and tons of options, over 1,600 options to choose from when it comes to your wording. But it might be that your sentiment is going to be shiny. It might be that your sentiment has a ton of texture, or it's a unique size or something like that. There's lots of ways to make it special. And then for me, the sentiment is actually checking the surprise box for me as well, because it's a really beautiful card. That shine makes it kind of element. We have the handmade coming from our textural die cuts, but then there's also this sort of seemingly incongruous, funny sentiment that goes with it. And when the two things butt up against each other like that, I think the laugh gets a little bit bigger. So for me, that's the element of surprise. That finishes card number 1 and our 5 elements, but let's take a look at another card and find those elements again. So for this one, I'm using Kit 48. Again, there's a printable card sketch and everything for you. And my textural element is going to be a 3D embossing folder. This is a super affordable, super easy way to add some kind of texture. I will also say this is hitting my shine button. So that piece of white cardstock is a white shimmer cardstock. I get it from Michaels. I use it in almost every single video. It's a 65 pounds, so it embosses beautifully. And one of my favorite things about it is that you can ink blend dye ink onto it and it will dry just fine. It takes ever so slightly longer than like regular cardstock, but not a lot. And I don't have to heat set it. So I'm going to add that panel onto our A2 card base, and already it's doing so many things that I love. Then I am going to grab a couple of dies here. So I cut out some 3/8 inch strips, those dark purple strips, using Emergency Card Essentials die set number 1, but you could absolutely cut them by hand. I just know that some of us don't really like to cut 1/8 of inches. And so for me, this was a lovely way to get the beveled edge that you get from a die cut and to avoid trying to make 3/8 inches look the same 3 times in a row, right? I'm better off when there is a tick mark on my trimmer showing me exactly where to cut. Then those light blue pieces are a 1/2 inch, really easy to cut and separate. And I just wanted that little bit of matte layer. For me, when I'm making cards on the channel, sometimes I will go that extra mile over and over and over again because I want to show you what's possible. But if I'm making a lot of holiday cards to mail out, the question often becomes, can I do this extra step in less than 60 seconds? If the answer is yes, like the extra layer on these strips, then a lot of times I'll do it. But if it's going to take me 5 minutes, I probably won't, except on a select few. So I am just getting these all lined up on my card base. I wanted to make sure these were going to be able to sit centered behind my circle. And so I laid them on the card first, and then I glued down that center one. And it's easy then to just eyeball the distance between the outer ones. I'll trim off the excess with some scissors later, but for now we'll put something heavy on it and make sure it has time to dry. I have a handful of kits where there are large format sentiments like this, and this is hands down one of my very favorites. We're going to use It's Penguining to look a lot like Christmas, and it's going to fit perfectly on this sketch that has room for a 3-inch circle sentiment. My dark purple circle is 3 1/4 inches, so I'll get a lovely matte here. And I keep talking about having a sentiment that's special. For me, that penguining, the little pun that's in there makes it special. The fact that it's so large and it's going to be front and center on the card, that makes it special. But you could step that up even more. You can print your sentiments onto pattern paper. Have you tried that? It's super fun. My friend Lauren over at Lauren Taylor Made did that the other day, and I was so pleased. Then you could also run this through like a mini mink. I printed mine with my laser printer, so I could use just some deco foil or some toner foil from a different brand, run that through and get a nice shiny foiled sentiment. That would make it extra special. But for me, I think just making it bigger, letting it really be the focal point, does some of that work. I am adding on these little penguins. They are so stinking cute, and they went out of stock so fast after they released last year. But I think they're back in stock again. They're from Simon Hurley, but you could put any small die cut there. You could do just a simple present die cut. Pretty Pink Posh has some I love. There's a birthday wreath add-on from Spellbinders that has a present I love. Something small, just to create, again, that handmade element. So we have our special sentiment that's front and center, our penguins and our ink blending that make this very handmade, texture from that embossing folder, and then from our stripes and penguins, shine and the white shimmer cardstock in the background. And then for surprise, the word penguining was a new one for me, and I think it's very surprising and a lot of fun. And that finishes up card number 2. For card number 3, we're going to get as close to clean and simple as I ever get. We're starting with a 3D embossing folder again, but we're going to do a different technique with it. This is 100-pound cardstock, so I like to wet the back to make sure it doesn't crack or break when I run it through, especially one like this where there are lots of really thin lines of sort of indentation or embossing. Then this is the same die set I used on card number 1. I used the Christmas tree the first time, but on here, I'm going to use Season's Greetings and then the top hat that's supposed to go with the snowman. Before we add those on, I wanted to add just a little bit of shine. It doesn't have to be huge and in your face. So I'm actually using a soft cloth. This is the cleanup microfiber cloth that I had in my craft room at the time. And I'm going ever so gently over the raised areas of this embossing folder with a little bit of silver ink. I'm using Delicata here. I like this brand. I think it dries really nicely. It will dry entirely on its own. You don't have to heat set it as long as you've got 20 or 30 minutes. I will say the Lisa Horton metallic inks, if those are still available, those will dry all on their own. I have a handful of other metallic inks that for the life of me are still wet. I made them a year ago and they never dried. So if you have a metallic ink you really like that dries all on its own, we want to know about it in the comments, because I would love to be able to tell people with some certainty that there are other brands and not just these two. So we've got texture and shine here, and I like how subtle this one is. It's just softer with the soft cloth instead of, say, a domed foam. And then I'm going to add a couple of die cuts, my friends, and we're going to call it good. I adore a large word die. So here, Season's Greeting was included in that same die set, and it made this super quick and easy. But it also makes this sort of a minimalist card. Sometimes I like a much chunkier sentiment. So I like to look for the Hero Arts Stampin' Cut or the Stampin' Cut XL. A lot of times those will have like a word die and then sub-sentiments. Trinity Stamps has their Simply Sentimental line, large word dies with lots of sub-sentiments. Photoplay has some fantastic holiday word dies, some of them big enough that you could make a shaped card out of them. So I will try to link in the description box below to some of my favorite chunky word dies just to get you thinking, right? I might do like a visual supply list for that. The goal isn't to sell you something. The goal is to get you thinking about what you may already have. You certainly could print a large sentiment. But for this card, that sentiment is extra special. I stacked it up. It just says Season's Greetings. It's an easy one because each word is just one die cut. And that extra texture and dimension makes it really stand out. Also because there is so little else on the card. So I'm going to get this sort of centered and in about that top third or at that top third line. And then I'll add that on there with my glue. I'll add glue all over and then tap it off on the back of my hand. But there's so much raised dimension that I know it's not going to make contact everywhere. So I don't want to do just dots in case I don't get dots where there's raised dimension in the background and then it doesn't adhere well. I think we can probably go through our 5 items on this one. We have a special sentiment. It is shiny. It is beautiful. It is a focal point on the card. We have a handmade element. I think both in the texture of the sentiment and in that top hat that we put together. We have texture in all the things. Our 3D embossing folder in the background, the sentiment, and then of course the die cut. Shine in that Season's Greetings, but that top hat is a glossy black cardstock. That also has shine to it. One of my favorite ways, if I don't have the color of glossy cardstock I want to add that shine, is to then put some packing tape over some solid colored cardstock or pattern paper and then die cut it that way. It's not quite the same. It's not quite as good, but I still love it a lot, and it can give you that same feel. Or if you are looking for glossy cardstock a lot, scrapbook.com has one in primary colors and one in pastel and one in black and white. I own them all. I think they're absolutely phenomenal cardstock. When it comes to surprise here, part of the surprise is mine, actually, that I made a card that is so clean and simple, because it's not a thing I'm good at. But I think putting the top hat on the sentiment instead of putting it on a head, which is where it belongs, is surprising. There's sort of something unique and different. We wouldn't expect to see that all the time. Your surprise element doesn't have to be like earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be something that was really, really complicated to figure out. Just something a little bit unexpected. And that is card number 3, my friends. Really quick and easy. For card number 4, we're going to make a little bit of a fun fold. So I have a piece of 8.5 by 5.5 inch cardstock, and I'm scoring at 1 1/8 and then at 4 3/4. Okay. Then I'm going to fold both of those as mountain folds, and I'm going to have the short flap on the left-hand side, okay? So this is going to fold right over the top to create this lovely little card. Then I'm going to take a little shortcut. This is a pattern paper pad from scrapbook.com, and I love so many of the patterns in it. I never thought that the taupe snowfall was going to be the one that I would reach for first, but it was. It is just this light brown color, sort of a warm brown with white dots of snow coming down. And I'm flicking on some purple pearlescent watercolor. I got that one from Spellbinders. I have lots of different pearlescent watercolors, but I love that that one has so many different colors in it. So I will definitely link to that below. I think it's really useful to have in your stash. Then I'm adding my pattern paper, the larger piece, onto the large flap. And then I have another piece of, it's not quite pattern paper, but purchased cardstock that I'll put on the short flap. Our taupe snowfall has some shine in it from that pearlescent watercolor, but this other strip that's sort of a purpley dark blue, it has texture, sort of a woven texture to it, ever so slightly a hint of glitter and some shine. So it's hitting texture, shine, and it's on that fun fold flap. So we have surprise, my friends. Then this is another add-on set. It's the Christmas add-on that went with, I think it was the Not Your Ordinary card collection that came out last year. They had a Halloween add-on and a Christmas add-on. It's got stamps in it and dies, and the dies are quick and easy to put together. So I had already cut out the sort of foliage piece there. It's meant to fit on this envelope that they released, but I have never made the envelope. Don't tell anybody, but I love it here. It is the perfect curve to stick with, like an emergency sentiment. Okay. So my pink piece is 1 3/4 and the green piece is 2 inches, but I'm actually not going to put my sentiment on this. You could, but we're going to do it differently. I had stacked up that branching piece 3 times because I was going to use it for a different project. It does make it sturdier, so I probably would do it the same way if I'd originally made it for this as well. But I had foam on the other half of that circle just to make sure that everything sits evenly on that 2-inch circle. Then I have a little heart to put in the middle. Both of the white elements here are glitter cardstock, right? And that's another great way to add both texture and shine to your cards. So here's the thing about specialty cardstock. I get some of mine from Michaels. Their white glitter cardstock, black, red glitter cardstock do not shed, right? And I think that they're great. I also get my white shimmer cardstock from there. However, if I want a broader range of colors, or if I'm looking for a metallic cardstock, I typically am reaching for the Spellbinders, what do they call them? Treasured cardstock collections. They have them in a handful of colors now, and they're pretty economical. I think it's like $10 a pack-ish, and you get 15 sheets of specialty cardstock. So it's really not very much more expensive than a pack of regular cardstock, which is sort of shocking to me. And they're really great, high quality. They're a little thicker, I think, than some of the other specialty cardstocks that I use. For my sentiment, I'm grabbing the rectangle sentiments from Kit 49 and I shrunk them down. If you're in the top 2 tiers in my Patreon, you have the option to shrink down every sentiment that I make. So that was pretty quick and easy. I printed it and then I cut it with the ticket die that comes in the same set as the other dies we're using on this card. Then I'm going to create a little drop shadow. So for my sentiment to be special, I think it's a really special sentiment. Holidays are hard, sending love and hugs. But then it's got a special shape. We've got that drop shadow to really highlight it. Our handmade element, we have a fun fold. We have our lovely die cuts that are also adding texture. We have shine in the pearlescent watercolor, and then on the short flap of our fun fold and on our glitter cardstock. And then I think the fun fold is probably the best surprise on this card. I love a card that opens a little bit differently. I just think that it's beautifully unexpected. For our last card, we're grabbing a 3D embossing folder, but we're going to do another different technique. This is one of my all-time favorites. It's the Argyle Plaid 3D embossing folder, and it's just got so much dimension. I think it works for masculine, for feminine, for holiday, for not holiday. It does not matter. I have one that is a full A2, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then for this piece, I started with a matching piece that was A2, and I trimmed 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So it would be perfectly centered on the original panel, but the pattern would match up. Then I'm trimming off my little strips. So I'm just removing 1/8 of an inch from either side of the center section. I did the left first, the right second, and then this final piece will just match up in the middle. In the end, these strips are 1 1/4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall. When I put them onto my A2 panel, I tried just gluing them straight on there, but they sort of, I don't know, cookie cutter together, sandwich together, so I don't get that dimension. So I decided to use 3 scraps of cardstock. They're slightly smaller than the embossed pieces to stack those up, so I would get a little bit of height. You could also use black foam tape here. I only had white foam tape on hand when I was making this, and I don't like the flash of white that you get when the card turns when you put a bunch of black cardstock and white foam tape together. So I opted to do it this way, but certainly there are lots of ways to go about this. That continuing pattern to me is really surprising. You don't notice it until you're looking for it, but when you do notice it, it's really special. For the focal point on our card, I'm just following the card sketch. Again, I'm linking to all of the original videos so you can get back to those kits and card sketches, but I have a black piece that is 2 3/4 inches tall by 4 1/4 inches wide, and then my gold piece is 1/4 inch smaller than that. I thought that matte gold cardstock was too much to leave it all gold, so then I subtracted another 1/4 inch from the top, bottom, and then from the left, right to create one more black layer on there. Then I have a poinsettia die. I will link, if it's still available, to the die of the month that this was from. It may not be, but there's poinsettias in everything, my friends, right? I think a half of the Christmas die sets out there are going to have some kind of poinsettia. In fact, I've pulled poinsettias from 2 different die sets, that large die of the month, and then the smaller one came from the Christmas bird poinsettia set. And I just stacked them up so I have all the dimension. Then we're going to make our sentiment extra special again. So here I have just an emergency card sentiment, and I went digging through my nesting dies to find a different shape to use to cut that out. So I have warmest winter wishes. And then because I didn't have a die cut that was maybe in between these 2 sizes, because there's a big gap in between them, I took the smaller one and I cut it in half to create an extra layer for the mat. And I get a little bit of that black back in there. If there's too much gold, I think it distracts from everything else. So we have our special sentiment with special mats. Then we have our handmade elements. That poinsettia can only be handmade. The dimension and texture that are in our 3D embossing folder can only be handmade. And this is going to cover then our handmade element and our texture. Our shine is just these tiny pops of gold. You don't need a ton of shine. We don't need to be totally gaudy and out there, though that's fun too sometimes. But this is just enough to make it feel really elegant. And then as we're moving into surprise, for me, the color combination is doing a lot of that work. Yes, I think that the textural element of the embossing folder could do that here. But when you have really high contrast, white on black, or I really love to throw like a fuchsia or a magenta in there as a third color. But when you have colors that have a lot of contrast, that's really surprising. It's an extreme. And I think that that works in our favor to fulfill that element of surprise on this card. My friends, that's card number 4 for you with our 5 elements: special sentiment, handmade element, shine, and surprise. I hope that this really helps you as you start thinking about making holiday cards for this season. Coming up, I have a couple of save the dates for you. On October 3rd, I will be sending out an email to promote the Stress-Free Cardmaker Summit. It's a free ticket summit, and I have one of my favorite kits maybe ever. It's the Elegant Holiday Kit, but I am not allowed to promote free tickets or send you the link for free tickets until the 3rd. You may hear from the organizers ahead of time. You certainly can get your ticket there, but last time people asked me to let them know early, so this is your let me know early. Then on October 24th, I will be the special guest on Craft Roulette, our favorite card making, paper crafting game show challenge. I'm honored that they're having me back. It is absolutely one of my favorite things to do. Card making challenges really push me outside my very comfortable box of techniques and types of cards that I make. So I hope you'll come and check it out and play along and chat in the chatterbox. I'd love to see you there. If you're looking for the kits that we used in today's video in the description box below, I've linked to supplies, but use your stash. Use your stash, friends. And then I have linked back to all the original videos so you can find the kits and things that are related to those. My friends, I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos in this style. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.